up ahead, and I know there can't be. Because if they were, watch out for me. I have a great deal of complaint to make about room service down here.
Yes, and some scores to settle.
Well, no, I'll let the scores be settled. Most of my people I've disapproved of have gone to the other place.
Like who?
Like, well, I don't know where he is now, but I haven't seen him lately.
You're stuck.
No, Charlie. You know what a naughty thing that was to say.
Well, sometimes naughty comes. Sometimes you can't resist. But what's interesting about this, which I didn't know, the love of your life was not Howard, it was Mr. Trimble, who died very young in the war.
Well, we were brought up together
Right.
long before I met Howard.
Yeah, but I mean, he was of love of your life. I mean, you've said, you've written about it eloquently, saying that...
No, it's like saying my brother was the love of my life. He was a golden boy at St. Albans, the greatest athlete in their history. He'd been offered 2 contracts to be a professional baseball player, a pitcher. And they'd send him to Duke. Two baseball leagues.
Right.
And they would send him, and then when the war was over, he would go to work for whichever one had paid for his schooling. And Jimmy
Trimble.
Jimmy Trimble, he was from Kentucky, and I knew his mother well. His father I didn't know. His father had disappeared in Middle Passage. And so he was sort of on his own at St. Albans. We were both stuck in the dormitory there, which was for birds of passage like us. And we were both political kids. We were both out of the South. I think you'll understand that. And there we are. And he had a career right in front of him, a big one, highly paid. And I was already writing my first book. And neither Jimmy nor I ever spent 1 minute thinking, what am I going to do? The life force was very strong within us.
He was going to be an athlete and you were going to be a writer.
Yeah.
Did you want to be president?
Well, of course I did. My grandfather came close.
Yes. Yes.
Cousin Albert was elected president, and he wasn't allowed to serve, so that's a cautionary tale in our family. And then another cousin was elected, Jimmy Carter.
The person you were closest to was Jack Kennedy.
Yeah. I was much happier being close to him than in his job, I'll tell you that. There was nothing about the presidency, once I saw it up close, that you would ever want for yourself unless you were a masochist.
Why do you say that?
Because there are problems which were created before you were born, and you're arriving as everything sort of comes to full boil. That's what happened.
Yeah, so he's now, the President Obama's looking at Afghanistan, still Iraq, but Afghanistan, he's looking at health care, he's looking at a whole series of issues, global economic crisis, all which had their beginning way before he was in politics.
Well, I was very eager for him to be elected. I was delighted when he started to run. And originally I'd been for Hillary, because I knew she knew how to do it, just through having been there. You know, experience does count every now and then.
Yes.
And he's eloquent, and he's a very superior man. We don't get them quite often at that height in political life.
In fact, you have said intellectually he was much smarter than Jack Kennedy.
Oh, than any of the others since Adlai Stevenson, and perhaps brighter than Stevenson. But one of the reasons people have difficulty understanding him, remember, and I hope you're listening carefully out there in the dark, just remember one thing, that until Obama, the average American has never heard an intelligent man as president of the United States. I make an exception, obviously, for Jack, who was bright, but not intelligent in the true sense that he knew a lot. Obama knows a lot. But what he doesn't know, since he got into politics, the United States has been turned into an empire, into a wartime state constantly provoking wars with other countries. I'm wartime president. I'm wartime president. Yeah, I'm wartime president. And there would be this crazy little mutt from somewhere in Texas preening himself. He has no more business being president. The Supreme Court must one day explain why they picked him. But it's on their head.
Okay, but back to President Obama. You're glad you support him. He's the smartest president we've had in a long, long time. And he has a real chance to be successful despite the number of challenges he has. Because of intellect, because of...
I was going to add experience. Once we became a world empire, and once we got a bunch of crazies in the White House, I'm wartime president, I'm wartime president. But you can't be until Congress declares the war, can you? But he doesn't, nobody told him about that. Gonzales had never got that far in the Constitution. You know, it's 30 pages long.
Alberto Gonzales.
That's a lot of work, you know, for him to read. No, he was, they're all flying blind. And now Obama comes along and the first thing he said after he was securely elected first time around, well, he said, naturally, the key to everything was going to be Afghanistan. The old kingdom of Bactria that was never subdued by Alexander the Great, even. He was going to, that's where the real war is going to be. And he's going to sell 17,000 deploy these troops. Now, we've already wrecked the Army. I was born in the cadet hospital at West Point. I served 3 years in World War II. Was I a distinguished soldier? No, I wasn't. But I do know about distinguished ones and, you know, extinguished ones. Like Jimmy Trimble. He's extinguished. He's gone. He'll never be in another war. People were thrown away by a bunch of deadhead politicians who had no idea what they were doing.
We're not talking about Iraq.
Iraq, I'm willing to fill in any country's names that you feel belong in there.
Okay, but I mean, the Korean War, say?
Korea was a series of mistakes which should never have been made. I'll let somebody else, I'm not an expert on the Korean War. I know something about the Vietnam. And I certainly know the world more than I want to know about Iraq, which is a bunch of gas and oil men from your section of the United States.
You never give up.
I never give up, by God.
Can we talk about culture today? What do you think of...
Where is it hiding?
Well, exactly. Where is culture today, and who is shaping our culture?
I think what is shaping is failure. The United States is a failed country. It's a failed state. It's a failed Constitution. In fact, the Constitution has been taken away.
Wait a minute. But, I mean, you've just sat here and said with great clarity how much you admire the president for his intelligence and what he meant.
I didn't finish my sentence.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. My sentence was that he takes for granted that war is our normal state. Well, I'm not saying he likes it. I rather think, being an intelligent man who's read a book or two, that he doesn't like it. But he's up against a media which is going on about our boys are in harm's way. We can't do anything to disturb them in harm's way. Well, all of this junk that is being fed to the people has made us a junky people. They don't know anything. And don't you get the question I get all the time? Who, they always say, it's always bad grammar, but who do you read, they ask? How do you know what's going on? And I said, well, I had the luck to live 5 or 6 years in Europe. Their newspapers are better when it comes to American news and our wars, because you're never going to hear, when you have General Electric owns NBC.
Well, they're selling it.
Yeah, where they're selling the wars. I mean, you're never going to get any truth out of them.
Sometimes, you know, the president gets criticism in some places because he has not sort of subscribed to this sort of notion of American exceptionalism. And I know you must be cheering about that.
Well, I never...
Because you never bought into the idea of American exceptionalism.
No, I never did. I think it's exceptional in its stupidity about most things. Practically every